Welcome one and all to a training video with a difference, charting a full month of endeavour and the results, which I hope will be useful to those of you wanting to build top-end power and endurance, including folk like me on a limited time budget. I decided to repeat 8 of one of my favourite Ed Laverack training sessions, tempo with VO2 max surges, in order to work on the power zones as recommended to me by Dr. Dave Dearlove from none other than Oxford University. So do stay tuned to see if it produced the desired gains.
Well, welcome one and all to Bike Racing Without Mercy. It's a training day. Here, for the first time in a long time, indoors on a Watt Bike Atom. I've been doing a lot outside and in the gym on a Watt Bike Pro. And on the agenda right now, well, it's tempo with VO2 max surges, upper end VO2 max surges. You may remember that in January, February, March, I was addicted to tempo with surges because I reckoned they created a really big bang for your buck in terms of the adaptation. Well, now I think I understand why. Because the tempo is upper zone 2, lower zone 3 for me, i.e. 225 watts, just below my anaerobic threshold, the point at which the body can no longer produce sufficient energy from oxygen in the mitochondria and has to also supplement with a lot of glycogen from the muscles. And the VO2 max intervals here is now at 400 watts are very much at the upper end of my VO2 max range. 350 watts is the kind of target power according to Dr. Dave Dearlove following time in Oxford University. So the tempo with surges combines a really good intensity or lower intensity to get the body used to burning fat and recovering at a high intensity, well, a decent intensity, and also VO2 max surges sufficiently hard. Jimmy, it's gonna be a long day. Anyway, I report back towards the end. The 10th VO2 max 60-second sprint is incoming. 20 seconds now. I found it's a massive struggle. I've had to reduce the powers using Zwift Companion. Drop off 20 watts of the VO2 max and 15 of the recoveries. Here we go.
We're only going to show enough of the VO2 max intervals and tempo recoveries so as to provide some context as to the perceived effort required. Key for this training is a clean transition into tempo immediately after the VO2 max intervals end,
Strong finish,
rather than letting the power capitulate into zone 1 and then sneakily building back up to tempo. This is as important as the surges and builds mental fortitude by slowing the clearance of those pesky ions in the lactate.
horrible. Wowie, disgusting. Reminding myself to focus on the pedalling technique, push through and down with the heel and backing up with the heel. And there you have it. Pretty consistent on the efforts. I reckon drifted down from 390 to 400 to 360 to 390, that kind of range. And I knew the intensity was too high around number 3, 4 and 5 before I reduced it, because I couldn't for life, love no money, hold the recovery at 220 to 225 watts. So never any harm in dropping the intensity in order to have quality intervals. And I know that each of the 1 minute VO2 max efforts was well above my 350 watts. And I was recovering there throughout a decent intensity, probably 190 to 210 on average. So some way to go before I'm back where I was back in February, March. Anyway, time now for the post-ride recovery. Protein shake as always to repair damaged muscle tissue. Plenty of water to rehydrate, obviously. And also lots of Mr. Carbohydrate to replenish the glycogen stores, which have been absolutely depleted. So this is the 6th time I've completed tempo with 60-second VO2 max surges in the last 3 weeks. 3 of those on the Watt Bike Pro in the gym to build strength with the air resistance that creates more metabolic fatigue. 3 here on the Watt Bike Atom. 10th and final sprint now.
It feels supremely difficult for the first 6 minutes or so, but fear not, because then you hit a deeply unpleasant rhythm. For a while, that is, before descending into the abyss of a dark age made only more sinister by a growing sense of euphoria. This is Training Without Mercy.
Well, not surprisingly, having completed now 6 of these tempo with surge trainings in the last 3 weeks, you can tell I adore them. Huge bang for your buck. I mean, those 60-second VO2 max surges would have absolutely caned, depleted the glycogen in the muscles. I ate loads of carbs yesterday, so I was able to complete this training fasted, training first thing in the morning on the amino acids and cold coffee. So having now transitioned into probably another 30 minutes of tempo, I'll be targeting a power some way below my anaerobic threshold, my VT2 as it's sometimes called, which is 234 watts. And by doing that, the body will no longer be having to use glycogen from the muscle stores to produce energy, and instead it's going to be able to produce the majority of the energy in the mitochondria from oxygen, but also this is a good fat burning zone as well. And after the VO2 max surges, boy oh boy, does this training at just pure tempo feel luxurious. And over the last 6 trainings, I've had a bit of progression in terms of the quality of my tempo surges. You'll see on the graph at the end, no sudden drops in power during the 2 minutes at tempo, and more consistent power for the surges. I reckon they're in around the 280 to 285 range on average for each of the 1 minute. And overall, I'm looking at what is my average power over the 30-minute block and my normalized in order to gauge progression. And I've been gradually eking up those 2 measures on the Watt Bike Pro, and the same here on the Atom. Quality and power measures in order to gauge progression. And thus comes to an end of training. Super efficient in my view, just over 90 minutes, building the VO2 max, building the endurance, and encouraging some fat burn through training fasted on just the amino acids and cold coffee. And as I say, all the intensity spikes up the cortisol and adrenaline, and they're the hormones that help break down fat tissue to create energy. A training exactly in line with Dr. Dave Dearlove's principle of you either train at or below your anaerobic threshold, or at or above your VO2 max. The VO2 max being the higher end of probably what would be otherwise calculated on a 20-minute FTP. Let's have a look at the data. There you go, the timeline. You can see the nice quality of the intervals, the surges, but also the tempo recoveries for 2 minutes. You know, not dropping down into the grey, always keeping it at 200 to 220 watts or so. And then on the back end there, about 40 minutes or so, I guess, of tempo. Hopefully, it will encourage a bit more progression. Well, Sunday morning, back in my happy place here in the gym, and over the last 3 weeks I've been continuing to complement the tempo with surge work with at least 2 strength trainings here
in the gym, always including the deadlift, the biggest bang for your buck exercise. After the deadlifts, I'm going to move on to a bit of upper body, maybe 20 minutes. I've got a new little training regime for that I'll show you maybe in another video. And then if there's time, well, there will be time, but if it's free, back over there, you've got the Watt Bike Pro with the air resistance. And I reckon it creates a different kind of feel in terms of the pedaling technique, a little bit more metabolic fatigue. I find it a little bit harder in all honesty. Therefore, one of the sessions has always been, as I say, on the Watt Bike Atom with no strength training ahead of it. And then the other session each week has been after the gym work on the Watt Bike Pro, really to make me dig in and get used to a different kind of feel. Well, counting my blessings, they are indeed mixed blessings, because the Watt Bike Pro is indeed free, which means the tempo with surges are going to be that little bit harder than it'd otherwise be outdoors on the Conago or inside on the Atom. An hour of absolute hell awaits. That is always disgusting. I was aiming at 350 to 370 watts for the VO2 max surges. In reality, hit 340 to 365, and on the recoveries was in the 190 to 210 range. Proper emotional. Well, as you can see, super hard work today, but very pleased to have got it under the belt. So now time to stretch off and carb up. Well, welcome to the 8th and final for a while tempo with VO2 max surge training in the quest to build both endurance and top end power. Looking to improve this week on last week's Watt Bike Atom, average of 382 watts for each of the 1 minute surges, and about 205 to 215 for recoveries. Not easy. 9 to go. I'll report back towards the end. The 10th and final VO2 max sprint coming now. If you enjoy watching a 47-year-old man deploy a multitude of pain faces in a quest to cycle up hills and mountains faster, please like, subscribe and hit the bell notification. Horrible. Got to sustain the tempo for at least 2 more minutes. Then a brief recovery, then more tempo. That was proper emotional, but definitely ending this little block of training with some progression. We'll see how the average power and normalized power on the Atom has progressed for that 30-minute block over the last month of ×8 of the tempo with VO2 max surges trainings. Just coming to the end of 15-16 minutes tempo, just to spin out the legs and make sure that the diesel engine was capable of continuing after the very tough 30 minutes. We'll take a quick look at the data now. And you can see there a very nice consistent training, and the Training Peaks data shows just how intense this tempo with surge training actually is. 1 hour 6 minutes duration, a TSS of 96, the normalized power somewhat higher than the average power, 267 versus 239. And so for the 30 minutes you can see average power 275 watts, normalized power 306 watts. And when we go and look at the first of these that I did on the Watt Bike for the 30-minute surges, average power 265, normalized 297. So it may not seem like massive improvements, but in reality the quality you would see
is a hell of a lot more consistent on this final training, and definitely in the Zwift racing, I felt a fair bit better. And let's not forget, you know, but basically 10 watts onto the normalized power and 10 watts onto the average power over the course of the month, that is not to be sniffed at. And definitely it helps build the confidence and the mental fortitude when you're having to kind of surge and recover at a reasonable workload in the Zwift racing. So definitely I recommend tempo with surge training. It's something that Ed Laverack introduced me to. I loved them back then, but this is the first time I've done obviously 8 in a row. Definitely time for a change in terms of the training, because the body does adapt to the same training stimulus over time, and the gains become ever more marginal until you eventually plateau. I certainly think I got a lot out of this training, and I hope you enjoy it too. And you join me partway through the Zwifts Sweet Spot Long session. That comprises 2 blocks of 30 minutes, alternating between 265 watts and 240 watts, i.e. low zone 4 and zone 3, and 1 block of 40 minutes doing the same, 5 minutes recovery between each. Now for some reason, around this time of year, I find myself drawn like a fly to a lamp to Zwift's long sweet spot session. I don't know why, but there's a specific reason this time around. You try saying that with 166 heart rate. And that's because over the last 3 months, I haven't been able to do any long endurance rides on the bike. Work has been way too busy. So as you've seen, I've had to do a hell of a lot of tempo with VO2 max surges to make the most of my 4 to 5 hours on the bike each week. And obviously, you know I did that because Dr. Dave Dearlove from Oxford University, following all my testing of blood, lactate and gas exhaled, had told me that my anaerobic threshold is around about 235 watts and my VO2 max is 350, and that to optimally train I should focus on either being at or below my anaerobic threshold of 235 watts, or at or above my 350 VO2 max, hence the tempo with surges. So I'm keen to see if less time on the bike, but trying to train optimally for my physiology, has helped preserve good endurance. Additionally, I have another goal looming on the horizon. The Mallorca 312 on Saturday the 30th of April. Very kindly, Maury, also known as Muzz, from All Things Ride, based in Harrogate, asked me to join him on his event in Mallorca. And it looks like a beautiful route on a sensational island. It'll be my first time there, so really looking forward to it. And very kindly, Maury hasn't charged me the £550 entry fee for my place, which includes arriving out on the 27th of April, staying in a hotel and half board, entry into the race, leaving on Monday the 1st of May. As I say, the race takes place on Saturday the 30th of April. So really looking forward to that. Additionally, I'm paying to take Jane with me, and also Paul Hamblett is coming along too. Maury isn't covering the cost of their places. But thank you ever so much, Muzz. Really appreciate it. And if you want to take advantage of this very, very well-priced offer, the link to Maury at All Things Ride is in the description. As I say, £550, including hotel, half board and entry. Should be amazing. Right, 5 minutes recovery now. I think there's a little minute, yeah, there's a minute at 310 watts, and then we're back on it. I'll report back. This is the third block of 40 minutes. The second block of 30 really did bite. This is going to be emotional. Really focusing on the pedaling technique, pushing through with the heel and leading back up with the heel for the circular motion. Just under a minute to go of the final 5 minutes at 265, then another 5 at 240. Proper time. Nearly there. Just refine the right cadence here for the 240. Slower cadence, let the heart rate recover. 3 minutes to go. That was a good training. Good for the confidence. Clearly, the endurance is okay. Phew. Tempo with VO2 max surges, preserving the diesel engine. Also, I dropped my FTP to 280. It's about 285, I guess, at the moment, based on my race up out the Zwift. And that in turn meant that the 5-minute efforts at 265 watts were just about the level where Dave said my lactate threshold lies. The inflection point beyond which the body struggles to clear the lactate from the blood. And definitely the 5-minute efforts at 265 felt very manageable in that respect. No real nasty build-up of lactate, and the recoveries at 240 did the job. I'll try and improve on this in a couple of months' time. See if I can add 5 or 10 watts to the intervals. Time now to carb up. Well, I think that after a sweet spot training, it's appropriate that we replenish the glycogen stores with something sweet, and Jane has been on hand with exactly that. I mean, look at this. A wicked cinnamon bun. There we go. Taste test incoming. The question is it, Rhiannon, as good as your homemade cinnamon buns? It's good, but it's not Rhiannon good.